What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm sorry I missed a day, but for once it actually went a bit quiet over the last day, so I didn't want to force anything out for the sake of forcing something out, as I literally would have had like 2 or 3 screenshots to show. So I let things pile up a little bit, and we now have something. I have a whole video to react to, and then a very quick sort of 30 seconds clip of something that I'm really excited that I was really excited to see. So hopefully this should be a bit more of an interesting video rather than me trying to lengthen out like what should have been like 5 seconds worth of talking, where I could have just thrown the screenshots up and be like, look for yourself, and me trying to force words out of it. But now we've got something to show, so let's get straight into it. This is the first video that I'm showing. IGN being spot on with their coverage so far. I feel like they haven't missed anything so far, as they've been at every single one of these events so far. And I've been finding out sort of little bits of information again from separate videos that didn't require an entire video about it, or sort of reactions or commentary over it, but I thought was really interesting, that I'm just again going to sort of pepper through the video. So this is the first portrayal of Wreck-It Ralph in Andy's bedroom, and one thing I learned about this, that I was quite worried how this was going to work, how the sort of light system worked that it was firing out, and how much damage it was going to do, and so on and so forth. And I was worried that as soon as you triggered it, it was only going to hit obviously those that was in the light at the time. But what I didn't realise was that the light actually, as you can see here, that I sort of glazed over last time, that I didn't really notice, that it freezes the enemies. So it's unavoidable, basically. You cannot miss it, which I was really worried about, that you were going to go through this whole sort of system, use up all your mana to summon Ralph, and then just completely miss everything. Obviously you still can miss if you just don't summon the blocks in the right spot, but as you see here, once you stack up so much light, it's incredibly difficult to not hit anyone or anything. Like as you can see, that it is impossible to not catch at least something in the light, and it seems to be doing decent damage anyway. And anything that it doesn't kill, it seems to still freeze after it's triggered, if somehow the light catches it but the explosions don't, possibly. So that was a little bit of a comfort for me, that I was worried that it was going to be far too easy to miss, and therefore just a bad summon. But so far there hasn't been a bad summon, which is really good. Speaking of which, here's a better look at the aerial summon, because before we had just originally seen the animation of her swimming around in a circle, flying up to the camera, and then that was it. But now we actually see how it works, and it is fascinating to see how it's going to work in battle, that we'll see now. So you get to dive into the ground, switching between Aerial and Sora, but you get to dive like Aerial, and if you time the boost right where it says dive there, that then boosts you higher, dealing more damage, I'm assuming, and just being able to reach more enemies. If you don't, you dive slightly lower, but that's unless these are sort of unnaturally weak enemies. It seems to be a one-hit kill on at least these kind of soldier enemies, and this is the obviously final animation, the final attack before Ariel disappears. So it's interesting that you don't necessarily see Ariel in color. You only ever see her in like water form, which is very, very strange. But she's still there. She has enough of a personality. Now this is a very, 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 very unusual boss. That's not really going to strike fear into a lot of people's eyes. That it's literally a action figure that has cannons on the back, which we're yet to see those fire. But all it seems to do is just sort of either trigger a horizontal sweep or a attack, and then when it dies, it literally just falls on its back and vanishes. So there we see the cannons actually being used, the less of a projectile but more of lightning rods, which seem very difficult to miss. So hopefully they don't seem to do too much damage, or else they might actually be a little bit more scary than they look. Because those two hits seem to do so he's actually taking quite a bit of damage there. So that's interesting. They don't look the most scary, but they actually hit pretty hard, which is nice to see. So he's heading outside. It's going to show the usual battle. So I'll use this as a point to explain some more information. This is old footage, relatively. So one thing that I found about Toy Box, what the Toy Story world is called, what we have seen in all of the footage so far, what I didn't realise was only 30% of the entire world, according to Square Enix through interviews and things like that. And I thought these areas were massive already. The fact that you can just walk across the garden, you can walk down the road, you can exit and enter the house at will, and we'll see more footage of new locations later on. But all of this area that we've seen so far is only 30%, which means that out of the entire area, the entire world that we've seen so far, it can get over just over 3 times bigger. Like, that's just gonna blow my mind. It's gonna take so long to clear these worlds, and completionists are really gonna have it in for them. But they've got a lot to do. If these chests are scattered around this insanely massive world, good luck finding all the chests. You're gonna have to be incredibly keen and incredibly aware and patient. Incredibly patient. So I already know 100% I will not be doing that. If I stumble upon a chest, I will go out my way to find as many as I can. But for once, I'm not going to be too disappointed if I miss too much. As it seems very difficult to get everything. So he's going to be using Lagoon Showtime again. Of course, all of these summons and whatnot don't, unlike in the old games where it's just called like Summon Ariel, Summon Genie, they have their own names. So like this one is Lagoon Showtime, not just Summon Ariel. So that kind of adds an extra level where you do have to almost learn the summons names so you don't accidentally summon. Like, hypothetically, obviously this is a poor example, but if you want to summon Wreck-It Ralph, for example, and you get confused between him and Lagoon Showtime, where you want to summon Ariel, it'll just get confused if you don't know the names. So this is one of the new areas that we're seeing, the events of the toy store, that you can still do all of these summons in. one that's based on Toy Story Mania. I'm just gonna keep calling Toy Story Mania because the fact that it's called Shooting Ride infuriates me. That all of the others have these such intricate and imaginative names, and that one's literally called the Shooting Ride. Like, I think that's incredibly weak, and I hope they do change that by the time the final game comes out, because that's just incredibly lazy. So these events fascinate me because it just, originally we thought, when it comes out, we were originally shown when the first videos came out that there was one floor, or a maximum of 2, but in different clips. So it almost sort of portrayed that you could never reach both at the same time. And then later on, the Gumball Machine came out and showed that via the flow mechanic, you can not only access levels and floors at will, not only that there aren't just 2 floors, that there are 3, which I thought was already insane, that you can just access all 3 floors at will whenever you want. And then of course we have the addition of this that actually means that there's 4 floors. They're even, like, you look in a situation like this, and of course the vents are above where he's playing now. So you think how big of a floor this is already, that's 1 floor, and then as well as this there are 3 more floors, 2 below him and 1 above. Like, until we start actually getting our hands on it, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to really grasp the scale of these worlds. Like, they are absolutely huge. Like, they're really sort of accessing the idea of, not only is it's a free world, but it's a kind of different game, because especially in this kind of part in the game, it doesn't seem like there's all that much story anymore. Because I know this is obviously the demo, so they don't want to show off any story, and they just want to show off the very impressive color and the fighting mechanics and whatnot that they've clearly put a lot of effort in, so they wanted to show it off. But the fact that you can even do this just shows how easy it is to farm in this game and how massive the world is. And the idea of being able to farm like that isn't very common in Kingdom Hearts games. The only time you would ever kill Heartless is while you're just continuing the story. So you just happen to have to walk through a wall, and you either choose to kill them or you don't. But with this, there seems to be so much going on all at once that you can access everything at once, and you can farm to your heart's content. It seems like, so it's almost like you can be such a high level so early in the game if you just feel like farming or not. And then the second video I wanted to show is literally a 30-second clip of another special attack that's based on one of the Disney rides, which is this one, by a very popular Kingdom Hearts YouTuber, and he is always up to date. And the commentary he puts over this is very, very accurate. So for literally the 10-15 seconds he's talking about it, I will let him cover it. That he's, as it says, he's talking good and bad. And unfortunately, one of the rides that he's showing in this is part of the bad part of the video, which I agree to a certain extent, but I'll let you hear him out. Obviously the talking will be slightly out of context because it might start halfway through the sentence, but just bear with me, and I'll let him talk through this, and then I'll commentate afterwards and see what I agree with, or what I disagree with, and just how I feel over the animation and the attack overall.
Off the Water Rapids ride. But the thing about them is that it's random when they happen. You can't really control which one to select at the right time. Attraction flow is based around your environment, and you'll get a different one depending on where you are. While it isn't exactly clear what's the criteria for getting a specific attraction flow, maybe when you want a specific one, but you can't get it for some unknown reason you don't understand, I really hope that's clear in the future. Another thing...
So, I think he's very, very accurate with this. I think I share very similar worries about this, that the sort of appearances of the animations and the Disney-based attacks are random, and I feel like that would be very, very disappointing and sort of interesting depending on how the combat will work. That if you just happen to randomly pick, say, one that is only based on the ground, then, and there are only enemies around that are flying, how do you hit them? How do you deal damage to them? Because things like the shooting ride is obviously ground based, but shoots, so it can reach everywhere. While things that are based on like the go-karts only hit the ground. So unless the game is programmed to sort of register that, okay, I'm only surrounded by flying enemies at the time of summoning, then it sort of removes the go-karts from the list and will pick from a new list, including only those that can hit them. That would make the most sense, and I think it would be incredibly disappointing if it doesn't do that, and you can manage to summon one that can't even reach anything. I think that'd be incredibly awkward and infuriating, as it takes all of your MP and stuff like that. So you can't just use another one. You can't make up for it. Also, one thing that was covered in this is the difficulty of the game so far, and it was covered in this video as well. That he went into depth about, obviously, because it's the demo, they didn't want the people playing them to struggle, to keep dying over and over again, and they made it incredibly easy to spam all of these summons and these trigger events, which he was worried that, because it got to the point where you would literally need to hit a Heartless like once, and it would give you enough power to use another one. So then as soon as one ends, you just do one more combo and you can trigger it again and do one more combo. And of course that just made it very, very easy, because I don't believe you can die during these animations. So not only are you basically invincible for about 10 seconds every 2 seconds, but it also does a lot of damage. So every fight was an easy win, no one ever died. And he covered the fact that we don't want it so easy, and we were hoping that, I agree with him, that I hope that in higher difficulties these kind of mechanics are affected. So in lower difficulties you can spam these a lot more. So like the demos were on beginner difficulty. If you wanted to do it on normal or hard, it would gradually increase, so you can use them less and less, making the fights harder and harder, as well as making your Keyblade do less and less damage. But that's everything from these videos. As always, I guarantee as soon as I close these I'll find some more, but depending on whether I do or the sort of detail that these game footages are coming out, I might have to get into the sort of pattern of maybe missing a day, letting things sort of add up a little bit, so I don't just sort of keep forcing these out, showing you the same gameplay over and over again, with me maybe saying one new mechanic. So these will probably end up being once every 2 days until Comic-Con, where everything will be out and I'll be watching every second of it, updating on my channel everything I find out, and I will most likely end up with either multiple videos of all the footage coming out in E3, or just like a 2-hour sort of live stream recording of everything that's there, because I guarantee there will be a lot, as well as a release day a confirmed release day. Because if there's not, then that's a massive waste. Because if they're not going to give us a release date on E3, there's no real better time to do it. So they'll be extremely missing out on things like that. But I'll keep you guys posted. And until then, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.